So yesterday I woke up at 4:30 and I went upstairs and I got my coffee and then I came back into my office and I started to work. And then I kind of got one task out of the way, I got another task out of the way, and I was just honestly going about my day. And then what ended up happening was I looked up at the time and it was 8 p.m. And that meant I'd been working for just under 16 hours, which literally flew by me like that. And now I want to share what I'm able to do in order to make me work for 8 to 12 hours a day every single day without getting tired. So when I first got into personal development and trying to become a better person, the first thing that I tried to do was to start waking up super early in the morning. But when I first did this, it was so difficult. I was able to do it, but I only was able to do it on pure willpower. I would wake up, I would be groggy, I would be tired, it would be like 4:30 in the morning, but I was thinking like, all those guys on social media can do it, so can I. And I would go and I would start to work in that state, but because I was just exhausted, I wasn't able to get much done. Then what I started to do was not necessarily go to bed earlier, but go to bed at a consistent time. And as soon as I started going to bed at a consistent time, my body got in the rhythm of going to bed at that time and waking up at that time. Now, people frequently poke fun of me because 8:30 p.m. comes around and I'm going to sleep, but literally when that time comes, my body gets tired. And then when 4:30 comes around the next day, my body is not tired anymore. So the first thing you need to do to not feel tired and thus enhance your productivity on a daily basis is to go to bed and wake up at the same time. Now, at that point, I was waking up earlier, but I wasn't necessarily getting a ton much more done in the day. And I was, working these long hours, but I was looking at what I actually accomplished in the day and my to-do list was still, half not checked off. And when you do that, it's obviously frustrating. It's annoying where you grinded all day and you didn't get anything done. And at this point, I didn't know what to do. I had the mentality, I was grinding, I was hustling, but I just couldn't get everything done that I wanted to get done in the day. And then what ended up happening is one day that was particularly stressful with my agency. And a lot of things were not going too well. What I ended up doing was I literally just shut my phone off for the day because I just had to give myself a mental break. I turned my phone off, I literally left it in my bedroom, came back in my office and started to work. What then proceeded was 2 to 3 hours of complete, undistracted work. And that was when I discovered that the silent killer to lowering my productivity levels despite the hustle mentality I had was how many distractions my phone was giving me. And it's not like I was, spending hours scrolling through TikTok or on Snapchat all day, but the constant notifications popping up my screen stopped me from working on that task just to check, oh, what did my friend say? Oh, what did he post on social media? Oh, is this video going viral? And as soon as I was able to completely eliminate that, I was able to direct all my attention onto the task at hand. Now, okay, so at this point, I was, not so tired, and I had the focus to consistently work on the job at hand. But one of the things that I hated was starting. And many of you can probably relate to this, where the hardest part of being productive is getting started. And at this point, what I was doing was filling my to-do list with absolutely as much as I could possibly get done in the day, because I honestly felt internal gratification by just being able to check as many things off in a day. However, what killed me was constantly having to go through the hardest part of being productive, which was starting. And see, when you have 20 different tasks in a day, that is 20 times you have to go through that grunt of getting started. So instead of adding 20 things to my to-do list, I created 3 to 4 big projects that I had to get done in a day. Now, here's the key. Those big projects could consist of those smaller subtasks. But mentally, when you frame your tasks as big 2 to 3 hour projects, you only have to go through that grunt period of getting started once, and then you can just stay in that flow state until it is complete. Okay, so then my next discovery with how I increased my productivity levels was a little bit of an odd one. So one thing that I realized was In the beginning, or if you're doing a task that you're passionate about, it was much easier to stay on that grind. But when you start to have that mental fatigue, or when you're engaging in a task that you don't find fulfillment in, it was so much easier to get distracted. And that was the problem that I kept running into. I live in a busy household, in a busy city, with a social life and social media. And so I was able to get through that 1 hour, 2 hour, maybe 3 hours of work, but then once I started to mentally fatigue, all of a sudden those distractions were having 10x the power on me than when I first started the task. And so what ended up happening was on one particular day, I was sitting at home working in my office and I was in that exact state. I was 3 hours into a task. I was starting to get a little bit mentally tired. It wasn't an overly fulfilling task, and the dogs were barking upstairs. So out of a little bit of a frustration from listening to these dogs, I grabbed my noise-canceling headphones, threw them on, and then turned on some music. Now, what I ended up finding was that the music that I was listening to, which was my playlist, were even more distracting than the dogs. But instead of just taking the headphones off and listening to the dogs, I went onto YouTube and I typed in ambient music. And so once I searched that up, I selected a track that sounded interesting, and then I literally started listening to random nighttime beach sounds, I think it was. But what those nighttime beach sounds did, as funny as it sounds, was completely drown out the noise from the dogs, completely drown out the noise from people talking, completely drown out every other distraction in my life, and it's what eliminated those distractions that were creeping up on me, which is what I needed in order to stay on the grind. Now, the last thing that I do to work for 8 to 12 hours a day without getting tired again came by accident. So rewind a couple years ago. My routine was to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, go for a workout, and then have a big breakfast, or if I was going to work out later in the day, just wake up in the morning, have a coffee, and then a big breakfast with eggs and protein and all the things that you need, because breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? And then what ended up happening was I would come down and I would start to work and I would start to feel a little bit sluggish. Or I would work for a bit and then I would feel hungry again, so then I would go upstairs and I would make myself a big lunch, and then I would come back down and I would again start to feel a bit sluggish. And originally I just chalked that up as mental fatigue, or I've already been working for 6 hours, or whatever the case was, until one day I literally woke up and I had absolutely no time to make breakfast because it was just a super busy day, and I skipped breakfast and I didn't even have lunch either, and I had nonstop focus for 6 hours straight. And it was at that point when I did some research on the internet and I found out about how much effort your body uses in order to go through digestion. And it's why after a big dinner or after a big lunch, we all feel so sluggish. So the last thing that I've done to allow myself to work relentlessly every single day is eat very little until about 2 p.m. Now, I don't necessarily intermittent fast, but I do not consume a whole lot of calories. So what that might look like is I might wake up, I might have a coffee, and then maybe 2 or 3 hours later, I start to feel a little bit hungry, so I'll go and have a banana. And then I'll go back to work, and then I'll work and I'll work and I'll work and I'll work. And then maybe at about 2 p.m., 3 p.m. sometimes, that's when I'll go and I'll have my first proper meal of the day. So those are the 5 things that allow me to consistently work for 8 to 12 plus hours a day, every single day, without getting tired. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you subscribe, because I'm going to be dropping 2 to 3 weekly videos to help young men by sharing the lessons that I've learned going from a lost university student making a couple bucks here and there to building and scaling multiple 6-figure agencies, while also doing crazy shit like running ultra marathons and doing a bunch of other athletic feats. So with that, thank you very much for watching this video, and I wish you an amazing day.